Hey, it's Anna. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to take you with me to meet Aiden Thomas, and then hopefully by the end of this video I will also have a full review of Celestial Monsters, his latest release. Aiden is a trans Latinx author, so I will be using he, they pronouns as for Aiden's Instagram. So if you hear those pronouns change, that is why. I am not going to give any spoilers at the beginning of this video. I want to just introduce you to Aiden as an author, talk about my reactions to the book I read by them, and then we'll go off to meet him. Aiden does currently have 3 books out, and I believe a novella that is also released. I have read 2 of his books, and then obviously the 4th that's going to be coming out is Celestial Monsters. So let's start with Cemetery Boys. I am not going to lie, I actually just bought this book so that it could be signed by Aiden because I listened to it on audiobook like over a year ago. And I feel like if I'm remembering correctly, I gave this like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I want to pull up my original review from like over a year ago and see what I actually gave this as a rating. But I'm pretty sure it was a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm pretty decent at remembering my own reviews. I'm definitely really good at remembering vibes, and I did really enjoy Cemetery Boys. I was right, it was 4.5 out of 5 stars. I said that the half-star loss came from the first 2 chapters when I was really confused with just how much was going on and the multiple time hops, and I did listen to this book, so I'm not sure if it's because of the audiobook. I've seriously never opened it until opening it with you on camera right now. So I don't know if it would have been better if I'd like physically been reading this, if that would have been able to help. I'll read you the description so you know what it's about. We have Yadriel has summoned a ghost and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself as a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, he performs the Quinces ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin Miguel and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so they can both get what they want, but the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants to leave. I think it's really interesting to see audiobooks in the physical format because I don't know, I feel like this is not how long I pictured the book just by listening to it. I really enjoyed it. I love the culture that you get from this book. I love the learning that I feel like I went through with this book. Yadriel is trans, the main character, so that is great representation. In my review, I said it was super fast paced and I loved all the side characters and there were multiple storylines to keep you engaged, which I remember is true. I definitely am a little fuzzy on the details of this book. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I did really enjoy it, so I'm super excited to get this signed by Aiden today because Anderson's was very clear about their signing rules, but we'll see. I am only bringing 2 books with me, so this one, and then no surprise, the Sunbear Trials. I loved this cover in person. I loved it via audiobook, but I love the shimmer and shine that you get from it. I think it's really cool. And then because I listened to this on audiobook, I didn't see the maps. This is my first time like trying to remember places that they went. I also listened to this a while ago, so we're gonna also go back to my original review. I think I also gave this a 4.5. If not, I gave it a 4, and solely because of the ending. So the Sunbear Trials, I did give a 4 out of 5 stars. See, I'm pretty good at remembering them. So let me read you the description of what the Sunbear Trials is about. As each new decade begins, the sun's power must be replenished so that Sol can keep traveling along the sky and keep the chaotic obsidian gods at bay. Sol selects 10 of the most worthy semi-dioses to compete in the Sunbearer Trials. The winner carries light and life to all the temples of Reino de Sol, but the loser has the greatest honor of all. They will be sacrificed to Sol, their body melted down to refuel the sunstones, protecting the world for another 10 years. Teo, a 17-year-old jade semi-dios and the trans son of the goddess of birds, isn't worried about the trials, at least not for himself. His best friend, Naya, is a gold semi-dios and a shoo-in for the trials, and while he trusts her ability, the odds of becoming the sacrifice is 1 in 10. But then, for the first time in over a century, the impossible happens. Sol chooses not 1, but 2 jade competitors, Teo and Io? I don't remember how it's pronounced. The 13-year-old child of the god of bad luck. Now they must compete in 5 trials against gold opponents who are more powerful and better trained. Worst of all, Teo's annoyingly handsome ex-best friend, Aurelio, is favored to win. Teo is determined to get himself and his friends through the trials unscathed for fame, glory, and their own survival. Does that sound good? I feel like that sounds really good. So as you can see, there are a lot of fantastical elements in both of Aiden's books. He does have a third book, and this is the one I might purchase at Anderson's just to like have, potentially add to my TBR. It is called Lost in the Woods. So again, I haven't read this, but I definitely think it'll be interesting. I'm hopeful I can get it tonight, and then maybe all three will get signed, but that's technically not the rules. So Lost in the Woods, I'm going to read the description for you off my laptop. It's been 5 years since Wendy and her two brothers went missing in the woods, but when the town's children start to disappear, the questions surrounding her brother's mysterious circumstances are brought back into light. Attempting to flee her past, Wendy almost runs over an unconscious boy lying in the middle of the road and gets pulled into the mystery haunting the town. Peter, a boy she thought lived only in her stories, claims that if they don't do something, the missing children will meet the same fate as her brothers. In order to find them and rescue the missing kids, Wendy must confront what's waiting for her in the woods. So I feel like I said there's a lot of fantastical elements. Definitely YA, I feel like extremely appropriate for young adult. I feel like I would encourage this if I was still teaching in the classroom for students to read this. And getting into Celestial Monsters, that is the second book in the Sunbear trials. So I am going to get into some spoilers. Hopefully that sold you a little bit on Aiden Thomas. Hopefully you pick up his books and let me know what you think. But I do want to talk a little bit about why I gave this book 4 stars specifically, because of the ending, and that means spoiling. So now what I wrote in my review is I said, I feel like the ending came out of nowhere and I have way too many questions. I listened to the ending about 3 times to make sure I heard it correctly. I don't know if all my lingering questions will be answered in book 2, but if they are, I will increase my rating. So I had a lot of questions, and I feel like there was a giant shift at the end to where Celestial Monsters, I feel like it's going to turn into that trio perfect-esque type. And I just thought this story was so unique. I was like, I feel like it just came completely out of nowhere. And I feel like the tone for Celestial Monsters is going to change. So I'm definitely interested to see, again, if my questions were answered. And I'm going to be so honest with you right now. I don't remember every single question I had about this book. I probably should have written them down. But once I start reading Celestial Monsters, the questions are probably going to come to mind. The biggest question I feel like I remember having is like, why is it only the 3 of them going on this journey, right? Like there is a trio that is about to go on a journey. And again, there were a total of 10 competitors. They didn't all die. I don't think they did. I don't remember them all dying. I feel like that was something that, you know, I just didn't get. But I get that it's a duology. That's the biggest thing. And I feel like I haven't found perfectly paced duologies before. I feel like I haven't found the smoothest duologies. So I wonder now if that'll change, you know, after I read the second book, if that'll affect the first book. Because I really did love the world building in this book. I absolutely thought it was gorgeous. And I thought it was so unique. That's why I was so sad to see like the common trio trope like come back. Because it's like, why do we need that? It was already so unique. I wanted it to be different. So we'll see if Celestial Monsters is different though. Obviously I'm judging a book before I have it in my hands. Speaking of having the book in my hands, I am number 21 in the signing line. Yes, I think this event is almost sold out. So that's really good because that means there's at least, I don't know, 100 some people there, and I am 21. So that makes me feel loads better. I should be in like the first group that gets called. If not, I'll be the first person in the second group that gets called, depending on what order they're doing it in. And I seriously don't know if Anderson's been watching my videos or if other people have noticed it, but I do think that they are really starting to clean up their, you know, what you can expect when going to a book signing. In their email again, they will let you pose for a photo with Aiden, which I am super excited for. And then there's a limit of 2 books to be signed that you brought from home, and then the 1 personalization on the new book. But in parentheses for both of those, it still says unless otherwise stated. And I really like the unless otherwise stated because I feel like that gives more people the opportunity to bring other books. Again, looking at Aiden's Goodread, they only have the 3 big published books and then 1 novella, I believe. At least I think so. Well, technically, I don't even necessarily see the novella on Goodreads. It looks like there's not Cemetery Boys, but it looks like there's like a different cover for like Yadriel and Julian Cemetery Boys that was redone. So I guess that's where I'm getting confused. So Aiden only has the main 3 books published with this 4th coming out. I don't think it's out of this world to think that he would sign 4 total books, right? The personalized one and then 3 you bring from home. I don't really think that's out of this world. So we're gonna see when I get there what books are available, if Lost in the Neverwoods is available to purchase. But because I had already read these 2 via audiobook, I definitely wanted those 2 signed, and I do already have a lot of my TBR, so do I need another book? Probably not, but that's okay. So the plan is I do have another half day off of work. I've kind of racked those up for doing some weekend work, which I'm really proud of. And I am going to be able to leave early enough to get there with plenty of time, be able to get dinner downtown, find a good parking spot and all of that, which I am very amped for. I love going to Naperville. I think it's just a beautiful, sweet little town to be in. So I'm going to be packing my bag shortly after I film some other content, and then we'll be on our way. I'll let you know what audiobook I'm reading. I'll let you know what physical book I'm reading because my September TBR is pretty scary, but I've already finished 3 physical books and it's only September 6th, which I'm really proud of. So I really want to try to like keep the momentum going to hopefully have this be like the most books I've read in a month, especially physically. So let's get these 2 packed up and hopefully get headed to Naperville. All right, it's a little past 2:30. I think I'm leaving a little later than I should, but I honestly think it'll be fine regardless. So let me show you what I'm packing to bring to Aiden Thomas. I feel like I'm learning book events better each time and what I like to have afterwards. So this might seem a little like above and beyond to some people. So I am actually bringing a cooler. I won't bring it into the event, but I want it in my car because I want my drinks to stay cold. I have a Gatorade, which I might drink on the way down, but I don't want right now. So I, like I said, want it to be cold. And then I have my little Perk protein shake, which I love to have at like the end of the day because to me, this has been like my ultimate dessert. So I'm putting both of those in the cooler. Snack wise, I have this little almond bar and then some Goldfish. And then I know I'm getting dinner on the way down there, so I don't need to bring that with me. I have a hair tie, my hairbrush because I did just take a shower, so my hair is still a little like thick and wet from the shower. And so I wanted to dry out a little bit before I put it up. I have my daughter's Revenge, which I was part of the way through at the beginning of September. So I'm trying to like wrap up some of my part of the way through books. So I'm bringing this with me to read until I get Celestial Monsters in my hand. Then I'm just gonna start reading that one right away. I have my portable charger, but I'm actually not gonna bring my headphones because I really wanna focus on physically reading, and I'll already be listening to the audiobook all the way down and all the way back. So that's gonna be probably close to 3 hours of audiobook time. So I don't need my headphones. I'm just gonna bring this in case my phone needs it. And then of course our 2 books to get signed. All right, I am all packed up and ready to go. So let's go meet Aiden Thomas and get Celestial Monsters in our hands. I also forgot to say the audiobook that I'm listening to right now is Twisted by Emily McIntyre. I have about 5 hours left, so I would really like to actually listen to it fully for the 3 hours I'm driving to hopefully be done with it so I can really focus on Celestial Monsters once I get it. It is 2 days after the Aiden Thomas event, and I have read a little bit of Celestial Monsters, so I definitely have some thoughts. But before getting into any more spoilers, let's talk about the event. I got there, I was able to get a front row seat, which is always just pretty nice, especially when going by yourself, to be able to be in the front. I did sit between 2 other people that were also there by themselves, but we were all reading our own books. And it's funny because the girl to my left was actually reading the Uglies book, which I'm going to be making a video about. Actually, the video will have already been posted talking about the Uglies movie, so I wondered if she was reading it ahead of the movie release. And I was very excited. This was kind of weird because I guess the shop is open until 8 on Fridays, and so there were just like regular schmegular shoppers just like there. And I hadn't experienced it. I don't know, I guess it's because it's just like summer hours. And so I was able to get in like kind of early, sit down. They checked us in starting at 6:30, gave us our books. And of course, before I sat down, I decided to buy Lost in the Neverwoods because they did have copies available, and it's not signed, so spoiler there. But I do think it would be fun to have Aiden Thomas be one of those authors where I've read all of their works. So definitely adding this to my TBR for October is the plan. I feel like I have a lot of these like spookier books set for October. I'm pretty proud of that for actually doing like a mood type of TBR. And then the event started, and I feel like, I don't know if Aiden just like doesn't have an NDA or like what the deal was, but I feel like he gave so much information. So I guess 6 months from now, he is releasing, shoot, I forget which one it was. I know he's releasing like a contemporary romance book. And then 6 months after that, I think he's releasing the second Cemetery Boys. And then there's also this gay Titanic in space that he's writing. So I feel like he is booked and busy until 2026 is what he said. And it was really interesting to hear their process. They said that they are an extreme plotter and that they actually struggled with Celestial Monsters Monsters because they thought the story of the Sunbear trials would just be one big book, but their publisher said, hey, we can't sell a 700-page book. So he was like, oh, I'm nervous to write a series. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense with where the book left off then, because if his vision was one continuous story, having to force a place where it's split off, I can see why I had so many questions. I feel like those are definitely being answered in Celestial Monsters. And then before I get into spoilers, I'll talk about my interaction with him. I absolutely adored the audiobook narrators for both Cemetery Boys and the Sunbear Trials, especially Avi from Cemetery Boys. Oh my gosh, what an absolutely fantastic audiobook narrator. I was able to talk with Aiden about this, and he said he loves his audiobook narrators. We took a picture together, and I got out of there before 8:30 p.m. It's such a blessing. Like, I love going to these book events, but I definitely do get tired by the time I'm driving home, you know, especially with how far I usually drive for the book events. So now we're going to start to get into some even more spoilers. So Sunbear Trials ends and Celestial Monsters picks up right where Sunbear Trials left off, but this is a dual perspective book, which I feel like that instantly sells me more on this book, because at the ending of Celestial Monsters, you have a bunch of the semi-dioses that get like sucked into this void, except 3 of them. So I was like, oh my gosh, Percy Jackson trio, Harry Potter trio, like all these trios, right? And I was like, why does it have to be a trio again? Because the world was so unique. But the first chapter this opens with is actually Chio's chapter, Xio. They pronounced the names at the book event, and I was like, Anna, you're so stupid for not knowing how to pronounce these. But that's why I'm glad I listened to the audiobook first. Maybe I should have re-listened a little bit before making this video. Oopsie daisies. So you start with Chio's perspective, who finds out that he is like the son of an obsidian god of vengeance, Vengaza, and you get to see his perspective of what's happening, and you get his perspective of interacting with the other semi-dioses that he trapped throughout this book, which I think is very interesting. I will say I'm only about a fourth of the way through it, so I'm not as far, but getting Chio's perspective is so important to me because I feel like that's already elevated the duology of, okay, you have this big drop, all these people are gone. I was wondering where those people were going to go, you know, thought they just kind of like disappeared. I didn't know we would be getting 2 perspectives. That's on me for also not like researching before, but I usually go into books without knowing too much of the description and definitely going based off of vibes that I get. So getting Chio's description I think is very interesting, and Aiden talked about how he was nervous about doing dual perspectives, but he knew it was needed. And then they talked about how they were so confident in the voice by the end that it was easier for them to flip back and forth between perspectives. So how Aiden wrote this was all of Chio's chapters were written together, all of Teo's chapters were then written together, and then when the 2 finally meet up, he was confident enough in knowing how to write Chio and Teo's voices differently that it wasn't a concern anymore. So I definitely thought that was an interesting insight into the writing process, and you just have very, very different voices in this. I will say, just being a fourth of the way in, I really do like Chio's chapters more than I think I like Teo's. I just like Chio's, you know, he is a character where he finds out that he has essentially been lied to when Chio gets his first period, and finds out that he's an obsidian and not just a jade, and the obsidians have this like terrible reputation. That's the whole reason that Soul's Sunstone keeps being revamped, I guess, so that it can protect folks from the obsidians. And Chio's an obsidian. He's been lied to his entire life. He finally finds Vengaza and he thinks he belongs, but because of what he experienced in the trials with Teo and Nia, you start to see these little seeds of doubt being put in. But Chio's like, no, this is my family. This is right. This is what I'm supposed to do. The Golds have never liked the Jades, and they've obviously hated the obsidians. This is right. So it's really interesting to see his thought process. The only reason I don't like Teo's perspectives as much is because Teo, Aurelio, and Nia's job is to, hey, go save the other dioses and try to make Soul come back to life. Don't get distracted. They've gotten distracted almost every single time. I'm just like, my friends, please focus. I will say, the route that you take, I love having a map for this. So I've been following the cities that we're going to, and I'm like, okay, we are going in a straight line to where they're actually supposed to go. They're just getting like a little bit distracted, but also I don't think some of the distractions are their fault. I think it's just circumstances, but the very first distraction that they come on to, I'm just like, okay, that was kind of your fault. Like, you were told specifically what to do and you said we're gonna do something else, and then now no wonder you're in this predicament. But I really like seeing how Teo, you know, a Jade semi-dios, not somebody who they ever thought would be the Sun Bearer, these 2 other Golds are looking to, and you still get to see the differences between the Golds and the Jades, and how Teo is like trying to constantly overcome that still, even though he's won the trials. So I think it's very interesting interesting. I am still pretty compelled to read this. I don't know how many days it'll take me to finish it. So again, I started reading it Friday night, read some Saturday. I've read some today on Sunday. I am on page 126. So I am very, very hopeful before this video gets posted. And I honestly don't know when I'm posting this in September, but I'm very hopeful that I will be able to finish this before posting the video to give you even more of a full review. But those are my kind of like quarter of the way thoughts so far. And I also think this cover is really interesting because so like these vines that you see down here actually tie in to the top of Chio's chapters. And so I think that's a nice little nod to him in the cover. Again, I think this cover is absolutely stunning. This is going to sound silly today, but I know that the Barnes & Noble exclusive of both these covers I think is actually a bit lighter. I'm going to put a picture next to me here. And I saw a few of them, and I am somebody that like loves dark mode on their phone. Like if I could have every app in dark mode, I absolutely would. So I actually think I do prefer these colored covers versus the Barnes & Noble's exclusives, which I'm really glad I decided to like keep it consistent. I feel like these books are honestly making me, I just recently redid my bookshelf, but I'm honestly thinking of like having these somewhere because I just love the way the sides look. I think it's gorgeous. I mean, even all these spines I feel like just look really beautiful, and I kind of want to like show them off on my shelf, but worst case scenario, I'm just going to put all of them in like my little signed book cabinet. Oh, I forgot to mention too, since there is a sequel of The Cemetery Boys coming out, I thought that was interesting that he shared, and it's from Julian's perspective, which I think is very, very interesting to see that come out. I feel like I would need to reread Cemetery Boys a little bit, or at least like read some reviews just to remember what fully happened in the book before picking up the sequel, but I feel like I definitely would want to do that. So now I'm going to put these books in all of their appropriate spaces. Sunbear Trials and Cemetery Boys are going in my signed book cabinet. This book I'm going to put in my October TBR pile that I've started making, and I'm going to probably keep reading Celestial Monsters for a bit. So I don't know when I'm going to do my next update while reading this, but I will definitely inform you all when I finish it, because I am confident now I will finish it before this video is posted. So let's get back to reading. I have finished Celestial Monsters. I am giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I just feel like there was more that I could dig into in the Sunbear trials in terms of a plot. I really like the dual perspective in this book though. I love the resolution. I think that this duology is really up there with Blood Like Magic, Blood Like Fate for me as one of my favorite duologies. I feel like books 1 and 2 were very distinct from each other, but the resolution that you get at the end, I really appreciate. I'm curious if we're going to get more into this world. I would highly, highly recommend this if you're looking for a YA fantasy duology. I feel like the Sunbearer trials and then Celestial Monsters, reading them one after the other, I feel like would be such a fun experience because then you don't have to forget anything. I flew through the last like 75% of this book. That's why I don't have any clips of it, because I just didn't want to put it down. I loved seeing the travel, surprisingly, which I was pretty nervous about, but I actually really liked how the trio did travel. I liked seeing Chio's perspective. I think that's super important. I think the book would have lacked so much if we did not get Chio's perspective and seeing some of his thought process. I did feel like the voices were very distinct. I feel like I could feel the hard work that Aiden had put into this, but again, I feel like I liked them so much separately, which is good, but then having them overlap together, it was a little bit clunky. I feel like, again, it was just a lot of traveling, which while I liked the traveling, it was a little bit slower. And I'm comparing this solely to the Sunbearer trials, where I'm a person that really loves to sink their teeth into plot, and I feel like this was a lot more character driven, whereas Sunbearer trials was a lot more plot driven. So take that as you will. Overall, the series, though, putting the two together, we'll say out of 10 is an 8.5 out of 10 series, which I feel like is very, very good. Blood Like Magic for me was a 9 out of 10 duology because the first book was a 4-star, last book was a 5-star. So pretty high up there with duologies. So I would definitely recommend this. I was super happy to meet Aiden, and I do have his book Into the Neverwoods, Into the Woods. I don't know why I can't remember that title. I have that final book in his discography that I haven't read. I put that on my November TBR, so then I've hopefully been able to finish their entire discography before the end of the year. However, I'm not going to be able to fit it into this video. I have too many other books to read, which is an interesting conundrum to be in. So I realized this video was posted later than I thought it would be. I thought this would be a September video, but it is an October video. I have no idea what my next videos will be, so if you want to see anything, just let me know in the comments below. I'm very excited for the October readathon already. I feel like my October is a little more heavy on just doing other things than reading, whereas September I feel like I read a ton. So super excited to get to the readathon, and then we'll start doing some year-end wrap-up videos soon, which is kind of crazy to think about. So let me know if there are any specific videos you want to see, and then other than that, just don't forget to keep on reading.